Hello, very warm greetings of the day to all of you. So, my dear friends, on this very pious and auspicious occasion of Makar Sankranti, I, Kunal Nagpal, would like to convey divine wishes to you, helping you to actually foster and glorify your life in each and every aspect. And I pray the Almighty Father always bestow upon you His divine grace and merciful blessings, and His ever bright sheen help you to enlighten your destiny in the best possible manner. So, I would like to welcome you to this great economic forum. And in today's economic diet, we are basically going to discuss the core matters of strategic concern pertaining to the Indian economy, and also if we talk about the entire global economy. As of now, as all of us are quite aware, that the global economy, the entire globe has been engulfed with the major headwinds. The major crisis has engulfed the entire planet, be it in the form of COVID-19 pandemic, geopolitical tensions, adverse supply chain disruptions, rising enmity between various countries across the globe. Then we are also seeing that a global recession is expected to come in this particular year. So these times are quite sensitive. And as we have been propagating and repeating, the only way to combat and deal with this particular crisis is to actually convert this crisis into our opportunity. That is how we can capitalize on our core innate strengths to deal with these crises, and these crises would obviously become the opportunities for the respective countries. This is the basic idea, and the basic foundation being our thought process of acting in a unified manner, and that is only possible if we think in terms of the global family, if we work in terms of unity, the unified approach, the teamwork will help us to combat this global crisis. That is, the holistic effort is required. So, yesterday we were discussing the increasing diversification of the international relationships by the Indian economy with the major economies across the globe. The latest one being the United States of America. So, in this regard, I would like to mention that there are certain challenges as being presented and highlighted by our respected minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal. So let's discuss the insights being presented by him in this particular regard. Actually, India and United States of America vowed to address the trade concerns, and the major work is required on the supply chain, being it the bone of contention. India and the United States of America have actually agreed to set up a new working group to build sustainable supply chains and boost the bilateral trade, the two countries said in a joint statement on Thursday, that is 12th January 2023. The working group will actually initially focus on trade facilitation, digitization of customs procedures, issues related to sustainable finance, and the overall scaling up of the innovative clean technologies, according to the statement issued after a meeting of the Trade Policy Forum, that is TPF, in Washington, D.C. The decision at the ministerial level basically takes forward the work at the level of Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, with the group tasked to meet every quarter. So building the resilient supply chains has actually become a strategic objective as the countries such as India, the United States of America, Japan, and Australia seek to reduce the dependence on China in the post-COVID world. Following the meeting of the Trade Policy Forum, co-chaired by the Commerce and Industry Minister Mr. Piyush Goyal and the US Trade Representative Ms. Catherine Tai, India and the United States of America also sought to closely monitor the visa issues and hence increase the dialogue on food and agricultural trade issues in 2023. The USA will also consider India's interest in the restoration of the beneficiary status under the US Generalized System of Preferences Program, the statement added. We are actually focusing on greater market access. We are focusing on ease of doing business between the two countries. We are looking at bilaterally a much larger footprint between the two countries for trade, investment, and business. Therefore, these small mini trade deals have lost their relevance today, as per Mr. Goyal. The American companies are also looking to invest more in India, he added. The US companies have ambitious plans and are looking to invest large capital and bring technology to India, Mr. Goyal said in a statement released on Thursday, that's on 12th January. The minister said that India and the United States of America are actually developing a very good mechanism for the Indian fishermen to be able to export shrimps for the American consumers. We had discussions for basically restarting the wild-caught shrimp exports from India to the United States of America, he told the reporters. Further discussing in this particular regard, the United States of America is actually to reshore the supply chain to be limited by the costs as per the latest studies. Actually, a mass exodus, that is, a mass departure out of East Asia, seems unlikely for the US manufacturers in the year 2023, with any decision to diversify further the supply chains away from the region dictated by the costs as well as the logistics consideration, according to the separate reports. I repeat, a mass exodus out of East Asia seems unlikely for the US manufacturers in the year 2023, with any decision to diversify the supply chains away from the region dictated by the costs as well as logistics consideration, according to the separate reports. The ultimate extent of how much production will be reshored or moved closer to home remains an open issue and will actually depend heavily on the relative costs of production in various parts of the world, according to the Citigroup Inc. report on supply chain finance. Reshoring or friendshoring are actually the terms being used to describe the US manufacturers' strategies to pivot away from China in order to secure the supply chains either close to home or in the nations with which America has a better relationship, like Mexico or India. East Asia has traditionally housed a significant share of global manufacturing because it was a cheaper option. That's the main USP of East Asia. China has invested billions of dollars in port infrastructure and new container ships over the past 2 decades in order to create efficiencies, and that has actually served to protect the manufacturers' bottom lines. But its COVID lockdowns, frosty relationships with the West, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine created a new equation altogether for some manufacturers across the globe in 2022, including Apple Inc., which actually switched some iPhone assembly to India recently. The supply chain congestion and port infrastructure will likely limit how much manufacturers can actually change the strategy this particular year. That's the takeaway from a study by the supply chain data provider Project 44. Consider the United States of America, which played whack-a-mole with its supply chain issues of the past 2 years. When Southern California port snarls required the White House intervention in 2021, the exporters sent their containers to the East Coast in 2022. This actually led to the median container dwell times of 10.39 days for Charleston and 8.85 days for Savannah, which was the highest among the major ports globally, according to the Project 44. So the overall health of the economy will actually be the ultimate goal, and it will remain the leading issue on how the supply chains pan out this year. A survey of over 2,600 industry professionals by the logistics services platform Container Exchange said that 88% believe that inflation and recessionary fears would actually be the biggest factor impeding businesses in 2023. I repeat, a survey of over 2,600 industry professionals by the logistics services platform Container Exchange said that 88% believe that inflation and recessionary fears would be the biggest factor impeding businesses in the year 2023. The Chinese New Year holidays, as well as a buildup of the new ships and equipment last year, are likely to keep the shipping rates low to start the year as the supply outweighs demand, all while headwinds buffet the global economy. So in this particular write-up, we have been able to develop the holistic view regarding the entire global economy and what's the major area of focus, that is to deal with the current crisis in a very, very effective manner. Supply chain being the major crux. And also, we have seen that there has been a slowdown in the Chinese economy. And various companies, various MNCs are actually divesting their manufacturing operations from this country. And after China, they are seeing India and Mexico as the next best available alternatives. So, India has this particular opportunity to present itself, to actually work on its core strengths, to actually take the best possible advantage of this particular opportunity. So the effective SWOT analysis, after doing the pestle analysis of the external prevailing environment across the globe, would be the basic strategy to attain success. And this is the main ingredient of success and the need of the hour on which we need to focus. That is to capitalize on our core innate strengths and hence strategize our overall policy framework accordingly. So now moving ahead, we would basically see the insights of Mr. Amitabh Kant regarding the matter, that is, India needs to push or nudge the West and multilateral institutions to keep the promise on climate finance. In this particular write-up, Mr. Amitabh has actually very well articulated, that is, how we can how we can maximize our overall efficiency, which is the need of the hour to actually combat the global crisis, with the major focus on the unified approach to deal with this crisis. So, India will nudge the developed nations and multilateral institutions in order to live up to their promise of climate financing, while also emphasizing on the women-led development at the top-level G20 meetings to be held later this year. G20 Sherpa Mr. Amitabh Kant said, India has actually taken over the G20 presidency and will hold over 200 meetings across 56 cities in the next few months, culminating with the PM level meeting in Delhi in the second half of 2023. The promise of climate finance is not being lived up to by the developed world. It is actually quite important to have the flow of resources from multilateral institutions besides the $100 billion funding from the developed countries. Nudging them or pushing them is actually a key part of the agenda for the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji, Mr. Kant said. Mr. Kant was actually addressing the third annual lecture of the Public Affairs Forum of India on Friday, that's on 13th January 2023. According to Mr. Kant, another key focus area for the Prime Minister is basically an emphasis on women-led development. The basic challenge is to ensure that we break out of the cycle of malnutrition, improve health outcomes, especially for the pregnant women, and ensure greater levels of financial inclusion, he added. Mr. Kant said India's focus would be on highlighting the need to address the climate crisis, progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals, that is SDGs, global debt, geopolitical tensions, and the ensuing food and energy crisis. There will be a renewed push for the green development and climate finance, with the concept of lifestyle for environment woven in, he said. So reiterating that India has actually taken over the G20 presidency at the time of multiple crises facing the world, Mr. Kant exuded confidence that the G20 nations can together turn it into an opportunity. India has taken over the G20 presidency where there are multiple crises facing the world: economic, inflation, geopolitical, energy, global debt, war, COVID impact, that is the post-COVID impact, he said. So these are the crises which have engulfed the entire planet as of now. And in these times, India is basically conducting the G20 summit. So this is of really the great strategic concern, and we uphold a very, very major responsibility because these are very sensitive times. So we need to present that how we can convert these crises into the opportunity. If I'm using the word we, I'm referring to the entire global family. We need to act as a team, as the global family, with a very well laid out unified approach. So the holistic team efforts can help us to tackle with the current times. So he further said, to my mind, every crisis has a huge opportunity, and the G20 in the past has demonstrated very well the ability to deliver in the times of adversity. So this is the main trait of the charismatic leader. Hence I repeat the statement. Mr. Amitabh says, to my mind, every crisis has a huge opportunity, and the G20 in the past has demonstrated very well the ability to deliver in the times of adversity. In such challenging times, in such critical times of increasing sensitivity with each passing day, who has the guts of saying such a statement? This is truly commendable, truly commendable. We are blessed that we are being led under such charismatic leadership. It's really, it's really beyond imagination. The courage, the basic aura our leaders are carrying is really remarkable. So, this means that we hold the equal responsibility of having this particular vision, of possessing this particular perspective. That is the broad minded approach. Now, we are going to discuss the insights being presented by Mr. Piyush Goyal, who basically emphasizes on the fact of redoubling our efforts to extend the TRIPS waiver to the COVID-19 diagnostics and therapeutics. India, on Friday, that's on 13th January 2023, pitched for redoubling of the efforts to get a global patent waiver for COVID-19 diagnostics and therapeutics at the World Trade Organization. At the Voice of Global South Summit, Commerce and Industry Minister Mr. Piyush Goyal also said that India is actually open to enter into the preferential trade agreements with interested countries in the South and hence called for the depoliticization of the global supply of essential medicines. We shall redouble our efforts at the World Trade Organization to get the TRIPS waiver extended to COVID-19 diagnostics and therapeutics, he said. Last month, the World Trade Organization members decided to extend the talks to decide on if the TRIPS decision adopted in June 2022 at the 12th WTO Ministerial Conference should be extended further to COVID-19 diagnostics and therapeutics after missing the December 17 deadline. At present, the waiver is applicable on COVID-19 vaccines only. The 12th Ministerial Conference decision of the World Trade Organization basically contains a commitment that no later than 6 months from the date of its adoption, that is June 17, the members will decide on a possible extension to cover the production and supply of COVID-19 diagnostics and therapeutics. India, South Africa, and 80 other countries have pitched for a global patent waiver for 5 years, whereas the United States of America, Singapore, and China have supported delaying the deadline. Mr. Goyal said that the less developed world and the developing countries not only saw vaccine inequity but also an impact on the economy, tourism, and other areas as well. We are also faced with other challenges, including the consequences of the geopolitical tensions. The global economic recovery is actually quite fragile and weak. The global rate of global trade has basically slowed down. The overall growth rate has slowed down. The sustainable recovery in this particular scenario is only possible if we all work together, he said. That is, the major focus is on the unified approach to act as a team, to act as the unified family, to act as the global family, in order to deal with the global crisis, since these crises have hit the entire economy. The entire globe is going through the major upheaval of the global earthquake. So we need to act holistically, collectively, not individually. We should pay the major emphasis on the societal goals. If I'm using the word societal goals, I'm referring to the global goals. Right? The minister said that there is a need to forge new partnerships and mechanisms so that the voice of the Global South is reflected on the decision-making table, noting that the developing countries got severely affected due to the supply chain disruptions of the pandemic, including severe shortages of food and essential medicinal products. He said, the pandemic has shown that we need to work together in a unified approach in order to build the resilient supply chains. There is also a need for the depoliticization of the global supply of the essential medicines. This is the very effective way to deal with this global health crisis. Yes, this is the global health crisis, not the health crisis of a particular country. So we require depoliticization, my dear friends. As far as the global supply of the essential medicines is concerned, the South-South trade has over the years soared over the years to hit $5.3 trillion in 2021, while the volume of trade among the developing countries is now higher than between the developing and developed countries, according to Mr. Goyal. He said that India has a large market and excellent trade ties with all countries of the South and would like the trade linkages to be further enhanced for the mutual benefit of all countries. India is also open to enter into the preferential trade agreements with interested countries in the South for tapping the significant trade potential that exists between us, he said. However, the minister cautioned we should be wary of monopolization of the supply of certain minerals, leading to high prices of these critical inputs, which would thereby make our energy transition very, very difficult. So, my dear friends, our respected ministries have been putting a major focus on the on the overall depoliticization of the supply chain in order to further simplify the energy transition, in order to further aid in terms of the global supply chains for making the process much smoother. So we should try to simplify the matter rather complicating it. And the only way to deal with this particular crisis in such times and to adopt such innovative and collective efforts, to put into collective efforts, we require the unified approach. That is, the holistical team efforts would help us immensely to deal with the current times of increasing sensitivity. Now, Mr. Piyush Goyal further unveils the MAARG scheme to aid entrepreneurs, and this will be basically done on coming Monday, that is on 16th January 2023. The Commerce and Industry Minister, Mr. Piyush Goyal, will launch the Mentorship, Advisory, Assistance, Resilience and Growth Platform on Monday, that is the MAARG platform, which would actually facilitate mentorship between the startups and entrepreneurs across the sectors, stages and functions. The matchmaking phase of the portal, which will be launched on the occasion, will allow the startups to connect with the mentors and discuss their mentorship needs, the Commerce and Industry Ministry said in a release on Friday. That's on 13 January. Mr. Goyal will also announce the results of the National Startup Awards 2022. The winning and the finalist startups will actually benefit from the support extended for their business growth, mentorship, funding, partnerships, market access opportunities that will further enable them to serve as a role model for the other entrepreneurs, the ministry added. The winning startups will be given a cash prize of 5 lakh rupees each. Now, further coming to the domestic economic matters, there is the policy on ethanol pumps, and it's in progress. This particular work is in progress. The center is actually working on a policy for the setting up of the ethanol pumps in the country to actually speed up the adoption of clean energy and wean away the nation from the polluting fossil fuels. So this is a noble initiative towards making the economy greener. That is a step towards making the economy more sustainable. So, speaking at a bioenergy summit organized by the Confederation of Indian Industry, that is CII, the Minister of Road Transport and Highways, Mr. Nitin Gadkariji, said he will be meeting the Petroleum Minister in 15 days to make a policy for setting up the ethanol pumps. The potential of ethanol is actually quite huge, and there is a demand from Bangladesh for it as well, he said. Gadkariji said that there is a requirement of 10 billion liters of ethanol if we blend it with petrol by up to 20%. Now, Bajaj, Hero and TVS have the motorcycles ready that can run on 100% bioethanol. We can also have auto rickshaws that run on it, he said. India has been pushing for replacing the fossil fuel run vehicles with alternative fuels in a bid to cut import dependence and boost local manufacturing. According to Mr. Nitin Gadkariji, the country's 16 lakh crore rupees fuel import bill is a challenge that needs to be addressed. Commenting on the status of ethanol dispensation outlets that have been set up, he said, "We have 3 ethanol pumps in Pune, but we now need the scooters and rickshaws to run on the flex fuel and coordinate with the pumps. This can be spread to UP and all scooters and auto rickshaws can run on bioethanol in the state." So this is a very positive steps towards making the economy greener. That is the policy on ethanol pumps. Further, towards making the economy greener, there is another drive going on. The bids to be invited for 8 gigawatts wind projects every year till 2030. The government will invite the bids for 8 gigawatts wind power projects every year from 2023 to 2030 under a new auction process, a new notification from the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy said on Thursday. The power generated from these projects will be pooled and offered to the basic people who are actually procuring the pooled tariff. The ministry said the bids will be on a single stage 2 envelope basis. The bids will also specify the capacity to be installed and the cumulative capacity in any of the 8 windy states will not be more than 2 gigawatts. The Solar Energy Corporation of India may determine the maximum and minimum size of the bids based on the wind renewable energy purchase obligation. The lowest tariff discovered through bidding in 2022 was around 2.84 rupees a unit. The total installed capacity of wind power in India is around 42 gigawatts. Further, moving ahead, we are going to discuss the economics of the sugar industry. The Maha sugar output set to decline 6 to 7%. The sugar production of Maharashtra, the top sugar producing state of the country, is set to decline by about 6 to 7% in the ongoing 2022-23 sugar season, which may dim the chances of more sugar exports from India. The lower yield of sugarcane per acre due to the erratic monsoon and more diversion of sugar for ethanol production cut sugar production, head of the state's sugar administration told Economic Times. The state of Maharashtra had produced basically 138 lakh tons of sugar in the 2021-22 season, a record in the state's history. The state, which accounts for more than one third of the country's sugar production, was looking to break this record in the current season due to equally high planting of sugarcane. However, as the crushing season is half over, it has actually become clear that the sugar production will be lower than the previous year. So, acting on the early signs about an adverse impact on the sugarcane crop due to the erratic monsoon, the central government has put a quantitative restriction on exports by allowing a quota of 60 lakh tons as a first tranche of sugar exports. The Food Ministry officials had said that they would consider the demand for a second tranche of sugar exports after taking the stock of the current year's production status. The Sugar Commissionerate of Maharashtra had held a meeting with the sugar mills this particular week and is in the process of finalizing its revised production estimate. Shekhar Gaikwad, Commissioner Sugar Maharashtra, said, although the area planted under cane is actually quite similar to last year, per acre productivity of sugarcane has actually declined by about 20% in the Marathwada region and by about 2 to 5% in many other districts. The diversion of sugar for ethanol is also expected to increase. These two factors, that is the reduction in the area provided for the sugarcane production, and also the diversion of sugar for ethanol, these two particular factors are likely to cut sugar production to 129 to 130 lakh tons. So, my dear friends, after this great insightful session pertaining to discuss the various matters of the Indian economy, rather, I would like to say the core matters of strategic concern for the global economy, I would like to state that our leaders are actually working day and night to actually design the policies to remodify their overall policy framework, to strategize the overall to actually strategize the overall framework in all aspects, be it political, economic, socio-cultural, technological, legal, or ecological. They are putting in their best efforts to attain the balance in all the economic parameters at their best possible level, and they have been claiming, and they have been saying that we need to adopt the unified approach, and that's what they are stressing on the international forums as well. So the basic requirement in this current crisis is to act collectively, not individually, to give the emphasis on the global goals, not the country goals. So, on this note, I would like to conclude this particular session, and I hope you have found this session extremely useful to enhance and embrace your overall perspective regarding the basic requirement to deal with this particular time, which is quite sensitive. So, my dear friends, that's all for the day. And I would also like to state that you please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you keep getting notified about our sessions. And it's very important, otherwise you will miss on the you will actually miss the important sessions, right? Thank you so much. Namaskar. Jai Hind.